Hello and welcome to the Old Man Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Flint Anderson, and today we have a special guest on the accelerator version of the OME podcast, which Thomas Lehmann. He's a real estate entrepreneur and housing advocate. I hope I said your last name right.
Absolutely did.
Tom focuses and specializes in affordable housing, and I'm going to let, if you would, introduce yourself a little better than that. Tell us what it is that sets you aside and what makes you special, brother.
So again, Tom Lehmann, you got it right. We are a manufactured modular home dealership because that was the way we could provide value to our clients, people we serve, because we couldn't build them houses at the right price point. So we just completely reinvented the wheel for us to bring affordable housing in mass to Central Florida right now.
And we were talking a little bit offline before we got on here just about the different ways of doing things. And I want to spend some time talking about the affordable housing because we all know that housing is just a nightmare, especially for people just getting into the market, but also about entrepreneurial gain and that journey as well. Because one of the things that brought us together was entrepreneur, Facebook, social media. The reason that we started talking here was because I was looking for you. We ended up connecting in another direction. But we have similar stories in the background, and all of the struggles for businesses, as we all know, if anybody's watched the OME podcast for a long time, are very similar, but we all come up with our own solutions for them. And that's really what makes good power. So what was it that drove you to start looking at this unique point in the market? I know you told me briefly, but if you could let the listeners know, that story's fascinating.
Yeah, in 2022, we had the normal acquisition company that supplied the flip company or the rental company we have, and then we wholesaled the rest. And we all watched as the Fed took those interest rates to places most Americans don't even remember or know about because we're so used to cheap money. And I literally saw my business model die in front of me. We were going to either change or, like dinosaurs, we were going to be extinct. And we pivoted because I had a property that was a manufactured house. So I had to get rid of squatters and all stuff we've all done before. But they took a chainsaw down the middle of it. And we had to rip it down and rebuild it. And doing this with just an assistant in the office. Like, remember the old way, you get 3 estimates, you pick one, you go from there, right? She's never done anything like that before. But we did this home start to finish. It took longer than we thought. We made money, surprisingly, because we held this for like 14, 15 months. But the process was so much easier to scale than multiple contracting crews all the time. We went from 40, 50,000 weekly payrolls to like 5. Okay? So I went from working for the contractors basically to keep them busy to not having to do that kind of rat race. And we could use 1099 subcontractors for almost everything except our project managers are in-house and they manage the projects, they manage all the subs. It just worked. Like the streamlined scalability of that, like made sense to me.
And that's it's crazy that's the way your business is structured because our one of our maintenance company and our construction company is structured almost exactly the same. We're an aggregator working specifically for investors that have a similar vertical to you. And I identified that niche years ago, went all in on real estate investment trusts. And third quarter of last year, my entire business model evaporated. As soon as it looked like they were going to be pushed out of the single family residential, they all quit spending money almost at the same time. Could not have imagined a scenario like that. So I can relate to your situation and your feeling as far as, and that's the one thing about being an entrepreneur is there's no guarantee. We can think we're doing everything right, and we can actually be doing everything right.
Still fail.
And still fail, yet everything falls apart. Or worse, feeling great and not knowing what's going wrong, which is what I teach my people as well. So how did you may not have been asked this before, you may have thought about it, but how did you maintain your focus? Because when it's very difficult while things are falling apart to keep your eye on the goal and to know where you want to be. While you were struggling, how'd you maintain your focus on that?
So I grew up in a very dysfunctional household, so I'm used to chaos, and I work really well in chaos. So when things are that, I'm at my best. When things are really structured, that's probably where I struggle, when everything is so aligned and I don't know. I'm like, I can't work with that. But when there's a mess, I think everything calms down for me because, like entrepreneurs, I'm completely unemployable now. Nobody would ever want to hire me. They shouldn't, because it just doesn't work. That's not an option. So we're going to figure this out, right? There's two things we can't figure out. We're going to pay tax and we're going to die. Everything else, I believe we can figure out a plan. So like with everything else, you start with the end in mind, what you want out of it, and then you go forward with it. Now, it may be a little bit different when you get there, but you're going to get there if you just keep grinding at it. And, I use coaches like I'm sure you do, right? I coach and I'm coach all the time, because if you're not, you're going to be behind on things. And I started gaming it out with one of my attorneys and with one of my coaches. And I said, hey, this is where I'm really thinking about doing this. And both of them just were amazed at the idea of taking manufactured housing away from what people think of the mobile home dealers, right? Because they're all shady and shifty, because that's why I'm one, because I couldn't deal with them anymore. And just making it streamlined, clean, state of the art, I guess, right? Like make it efficient for everybody.
And I was going to ask you about that, how you overcome that stigma associated with the manufactured home. And we run into that when we're looking. It's almost like going to buy, and I don't mean to throw any car dealers out under the bus, but it's like going to a used car lot to buy a house. Oh, we'll say what we want to get you in here, and then goes from there. So did you have a lot of pushback on that?
I had a lot of problem with the dealers in fulfilling their obligation, because contracts are legal documents, and they'll tell you one thing, but as soon as you give money, you're done. That drove me crazy. There was one guy, I'll just tell you, he had 3 fingers, and whatever stigma comes with that, just imagine like he was shifty as all heck. And there were problems because we would pay for a unit, we would be given a delivery date, but then they would put it off by like 3, 4, 5 months. Yeah, and you're paying interest on that loan already. You're chugging along. And it turns out like those units were going other places, unfortunately. And I found out, and thankfully my better half, my wife, knows how to calm me down, because I basically told the guy I'm going to take the rest of his fingers one day. Okay, and so she's like, no, this is how we'll do this. Relax. And we just went to become a dealer and change all that. I always say she's my better and calmer half, for sure.
It's funny how our wives are the voice of reason. And being guys, I don't know about you, but half the time I choose not to listen to her until I do listen to her, and then turn around and go, I should have listened in the first place. This has been a hell of a lot easier.
I joke with my wife, because my wife is Indian, and I have Siri on my phone in the Indian sound. And she laughs, and she's like, why? I said, well, I'll listen to that one.
That makes her happy.
She works with me. She puts up with me. I am challenging. But I can tell you right now, I'm here today because of her, because you know what she did? She gave me structure for the first time in a house. And I used to have a different business. I went to her and said, I'm so much more capable than what I'm doing. So imagine, we just bought a new house. We built the house. We take care of my mom, her parents, got a new baby. And she just says, hey, you know what? Go do what makes you happy. It's like, oh, really? Yeah. Now, the first year I did that, I made $4,000 total and never told her how bad things were. Okay. I said, I better figure this out or I'm going to be the ex-husband. Okay. And I kind of like this wife. I'm too old for that stuff. And I just went out on my own and did it. Okay. Because what were my choices? I didn't even know that was the burn the boat scenario. Okay. Yeah. There was no plan B.
And I don't know, I wouldn't be where I am today without Des. And now anybody that sees us interact can tell you that, because she pushes me. She makes me be better, but also believes in me. I mean, when I came home after I left my 6-figure corporate job and said, well, we're fully independent, all she did was look at me and go, okay, well, it's about time.
People be surprised about how that support for men like us, right? It matters because they have full trust and faith in us. And I'm not going to let her down. I refuse, okay? And you know what? It worked out. I knew it would because I had no choice. She got to retire at 39 years old, okay? And then she came full-time into the business at 41.
That's awesome.
Because she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and man, I got to provide that for her. That's like one of the happiest things I heard her say.
Oh, and I love that. Our story's similar, a little bit older than yours, I think. She came home, raised our kids when 2002. She came home, and it's been in and out of the business since then. And I left the corporate world in 2004. And you're right, going back doesn't make any sense. It's like it would just be stupid. There's no I don't want
Who
the
would
pay
put up
cut.
with you, right? Who
Yeah,
would
and
put up with us? Because
I'm
it's
going to be a
not going to
terrible
work.
employee. I, even on a long-term contract, I'm not great because it started to feel a lot like a job.
Because they want to manage. We're probably guys who don't need to be managed. And I don't. You give me my whatever I'm supposed to do. I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
But if you're always over my shoulder looking, it bothers me because I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't need your supervision. I'm an adult. Go over there.
Yeah.
And that's why I left my consulting gig, because when I moved to Orlando back from California at one point, I worked in the main office. And now me and my direct supervisor who ran the company, we saw each other every day, and he was a super micromanager.
Oh,
And I just got up and walked out one day, like I literally just resigned. And his wife called me and said, hey, what happened? I said, I'm going to kill Lou. She's like, well, everybody wants to kill Lou. I said, yeah, but I don't need this. And we're friends because I walked out that way.
that's good that you made that call ahead of time. We were having lunch yesterday with a buddy of mine, and I've known him in business for a long time, and he's having trouble making those calls. It's like, okay, when you need to separate either somebody from you or you from yourself, you need to make that call way before you bring the wrong person in, because it's just poison, even if they're just being themselves. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you get a good feeling with people, and you'll know whether you should go left or right.
And you would. And
Like,
if
a
we
lot of people
follow,
are afraid to make decisions, though.
well, and how much did your wife tell you ahead of time that you just didn't listen to, or your gut's telling you something you should listen to, and then when you finally make the decision, you feel better?
Well, we were building the house, okay? So I couldn't leave just yet, right? So I had to, like, because, the banks love that W-2 income.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
And so I was like, and then once we moved in and everything was done, then it just built, because I had something I had to pay for, and then it was like, now let me figure it out,
Yeah.
Because then the numbers worked in because everything in life is math. Now the math made sense for me to leave because, okay, we're good. Because, they still check to make sure you're working, right, beforehand. Now it's even like the day of closings, it seems.
Yeah.
But, okay, let me just make sure we're good, and then I'll make a decision, because, happiness matters. And
It does.
I was an entrepreneur before, then I was in consulting for a decade, and then back to it, okay? I just can't see myself ever doing anything different.
Once you resign yourself to it, and I really think it's resignation, because we start out excited, but you don't stay there. At some point, you have to choose. Like, okay, what is it Musk says? It's like looking into the abyss, chewing glass.
But I want to rely on me and nobody else. I want me to be the final responsible person for everything that happens, because you know what? I'm going to make sure it's done.
We don't want
And
to be
everyone who
responsible
works
for
here, I
somebody
care
else's
for. They're family
incompetence.
to me, okay? And, not every company thinks that way, right? They don't care about you. You're just a number.
And that's it. And they'll replace you tomorrow once you walk away. It's not that crazy. Well, let's talk about, this is my favorite subject, but I do want to get into what you specifically talk about. Let's talk about the housing market and affordable housing, specifically from the aspect of younger people or people that can't afford the $400,000-$500,000 entry level to play, so to speak. Your company helps address that in ways that you've explained, but if you were going to give advice to somebody just coming into the market to take advantage of your services, what would it be? What would you like your people to know?
You should have bought from us in September when the rates were better, but because a lot of people were waiting, right? Oh, it's going to get lower. If you're going to buy a house and you can afford it, you buy the house. You don't keep waiting and paying rent or whatever you're doing. And I think today people don't realize the value of the money and interest. What they saw is not going to happen probably in you and me lifetime again, right? We're not going to see 2 point something percent because that's not the norm. And no politics involved, but it was, oh, well, when Trump's going to make it 3%. No, he's not. Kamala's going to make it 3%. No, she's not. This is the reality we live in. And if you can afford to buy, you buy. And people who were buying looking in September, they were like, oh my God, it's 6.9 now. Like, yeah, but you were supposed to buy. And to own the home is a responsibility that Americans should always want to take. Okay? Because you own something, it's a value, it will grow. And look, I'm a landlord. I love it. But you know what? I always tell my tenants, if I can help you buy a house, I will, because you should. Because it's better for you. We have this weird thought today, like, don't buy a house, don't do that. But you should, because that's the way to grow wealth somehow.
Yeah.
And people got away from that. Isn't that what the American dream is? Home ownership, property. This is yours, not living in some, apartment somewhere all the time
And that,
forever, just paying rent that you get no value on. And that's the value of that money going into your house, because you get a return on it one day.
and people are, I don't think as many young people are taught that these days either. I know if you grow up in an underprivileged, or whatever the buzzword is today, I grew up poor.
I was dirt poor, right?
We didn't have food to eat all the time in between paydays, so we didn't have anything. And that particular class of young people coming up, they're not taught not only not how money works, but what the value is. They just know their parents rented, didn't have anything, so they just follow in that footsteps. So what unique approaches and innovative approaches are you taking to impact the housing market in your area?
So we are trying to do several different ways. We partner with some nonprofits we're getting into in certain counties because they have programs that take people who were in really bad situations, get them stable housing, get them jobs, and then make them bankable for mortgages. And they were looking for a partner to work with them on housing because they're looking for a price point. So that's one of the ways. We reach out to a lot of mortgage companies and have meetings in the sense that you have these people here who couldn't find a house. We'll provide them a house. Okay, because remember, it's manufactured or modular. We can work with them.
Mm-hmm.
We show them what our products look like because they're really nice compared to what people think. There's that stigma, right, of the mobile home park, and that's not, that's your grandma's mobile home, right? That's different. I can make them to where you wouldn't know you're in one, like tray ceilings, all the different paints. Yeah, is it a different price point? Yes. But even the baseline one we have, they look really good because I demand they do. Okay. I still go see every house before it gets turned over. I make surprise run. We had an issue on Sunday. My project managers, lucky they have heads right now on that job. Okay. Because we don't do stuff like, people got careless, right? We don't allow that, right?
Yeah.
Because in this market, you have one chance to make a good impression. And this realtor sent in feedback. They bought somewhere else because of how my house looked.
That's not good.
No. Like I said, they're lucky their family still, because because we don't do things like that. We need to be different because that's what sets us apart.
And that makes sense. And that leads into the next question. You have apparently 20% market share in Central Florida and over 50% in Polk County. You didn't get that by cutting corners. So can you explain to us how you got there and what those metrics mean from an affordability standpoint?
So year one, we were 14% of Central Florida. We're at the end of our second year now, and we're cruising right over 20%. But then you go into Polk, Pasco, Hernando, 50, 30, and 38% of that market is our units or units we sold to people and placed for them, okay? We got that by what I wanted to always be. We're not your manufactured home dealer. Our pricing is up front. Hey, this is what it cost us. This is our fee. Simple. How much help do you need now? Do you want us to do all the work for you? Do you want us to give it to you? We'll do it on the land. Our job is to serve this community, our clients. That's the word. We serve them, okay? Because a lot of investors, that's not a sexy market. It's not. There's not a lot of big margins at times, okay? And they go away real quick, and it happens. So that's the drive we have. Like the team, if you don't buy into that concept, you're not going to be here long. Because these people, we serve them. Simple. End of story. And I do that from start to finish. We will hold their hand. We'll get them approved for mortgages if need be. Because that's what's going to set us apart. And we're going to show them every dollar pricing up front. Not, hey, by the way, it's 10 grand more. No. Right? Yeah, that's the market.
Yep, you hear that all the time. I'm going to ask you, a lot of people, I'm going to go back to where we were talking about people don't know or not trained or don't understand that. For people that are interested in owning a home but have no idea what to do, what would you guide somebody that came to you and said, hey, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. I've rented my whole life. What do I need to do to be able to qualify for this? And what actually qualifies? Because I think a lot of people out there may qualify or be closer than they think they are. They just are ignorant to what they need to do.
So we would put them with one of our mortgage partners, okay, depending on their area, okay. We have certain ones that we work with well. And like us, they serve this client because they don't charge what they could. That's why they're with us,
Hmm.
because if you're going to just bang them over the head, I don't want that. I've had people, I've had friends who did that to my clients. We're not really friends anymore because that's not who we serve, and who own mortgage companies. But we'll put them with someone to bring them through the process, a professional that they're going to take care of them. Okay, because that's what they're also into, the service of this community. Because again, there's not big margins, and the one company we work with, in they're out by Tampa, called Stone Mortgage. They only charge half the fees they can. Yeah, maybe we should talk, and that's what we did. Right, our vision and who we are aligned perfect. Okay, I was starting a mortgage company until I hooked up with them. I'm like, oh, I don't need to, because they're going to carry people together with us.
That makes sense. So your advice, to just to clarify and to restate, your advice to somebody wanting to buy a house is go and talk to somebody who has a demonstrated track record of integrity and of success, and then listen to them, work with them to figure out what you need to do.
You
But I'm
know,
going
100%. You
to,
just said it perfectly, because get pre-approved, know what you can afford, or maybe know what steps you need to do to make you get pre-approved. Because sometimes you're so close. There was a woman last year who needed to get some bill removed, and now they have a service to expedite that stuff, right? She didn't know. I didn't know either. And then they said, "Oh no, we can get this out in 48 hours." What? Okay, right? And look, check your credit. Make sure you're looking at it. Everyone has Credit Karma or whatever the apps are
Mhm.
today, but there's still, I don't know if when I was in college, there was a class on credit repair. I
Yep.
took it. It still works. You know what you do? You write each of the credit bureau letters and letters and letters and saying, remove this. Because remember, there's somebody sitting at a desk doing this, and it only takes one of them to just, hey, do their job that day, right? But when I was telling somebody this, they're like, you want me to write a letter? And I was like, oh, yeah. It's like, but I can do it online, but you can only do one. One. What if we send 100 letters? Guess what? We have a chance of that working. And it did, you know?
Send one every day. I remember that.
Because remember, it's just some guy or girl at a desk doing this, and yeah, whatever. And guess what? When this credit bureau takes it off, these are going to follow too.
Another
But
thing
is
I'm going
that
to
work?
encourage,
Yes, so.
well, it does. There's proven track record. There's companies out there that do it for you. But one thing
Hmm.
I'm going to encourage the listeners to do, and all of you out there, is don't be afraid to go have these discussions. These folks are not out there to look down on you for bad credit. They're not there to look down on you for choices you've made. They're there to help, and this is what they do. It's in their best interest to help you, obviously, because they want you to buy from them.
Absolutely.
But don't be afraid to go talk to them and explore what your options are. They will teach you. But the stigma that's in your industry associated with it scares people. Same reason they don't go buy a used car. Same reason they don't go buy a car. They're afraid they're going to get taken advantage of. So take the time to learn from some people with integrity, which is why I was really excited to have you on the show today. One of the things I want to talk about too, outside of your specific industry, and then we talked a little bit about entrepreneurship, but let's talk about leadership. What principles guide you? You obviously, integrity is one of them. You've hit that a couple of times, but what principles have guided you and have led to your success in multiple businesses? And you didn't talk about that too much here, but offline we talked about you've had several businesses over the years and currently do too.
I lead from the front. I'm not afraid to go back and do anything that we need to do. Okay. And I think at times people feel that once you get to a certain position, that means you're above everything. No, right? If you need to jump in, because sometimes you need to be seen doing the hard stuff. Don't talk about it. Let your people see you. You lead by example. My personality has changed over the years, right? I'm more easygoing, we'll say, because I know more, right? I've aged well, I guess, in that area. And there's no need to yell and scream. You show people how to lead by just being a good leader, being the example. A lot of people want to say, oh, I'm coming in at this time and this time, and that's on them. You know, I'm the hardest working person in my company. Okay. But I'm managing several of them. Okay. Everybody knows I'm available. They know what's my responsibility, but I didn't know what's theirs. And I do a good job of setting expectations now more than ever. Right. We bring somebody on. This is what I have to do, but this is what you have to do. Please sign it. Right. Because we want a good fit. We want everyone to know, because it's hard to bring somebody in or anybody who's here if they don't know what they're supposed to do every day, right? And so we don't train anybody, we teach them. Okay? This is our way of doing things. These are our core values. These are my non-negotiables, seriously. Like, one of them is really big. It's like, be a good team player. That means carry your weight. Don't put it on somebody else. And you set that expectation from the top down. Okay? You can't let your team set it because guess what? They're not you. You set the expectations.
That's all sage advice, and it doesn't matter what business it is. So with what you do and all the different areas that you do, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated? How do you stay excited every day? Because the grind is, and my favorite saying is, the grind is boring. A lot of what we do every day is just repetitive. So what keeps you going? What keeps your head in the game?
The cliche is my children. Okay, so I have a 15 and a 7. One of the things on my wall says, to be in the 1%, do what the 99% don't do. So my daughter started asking questions about that. Okay. She's 7 going on 8. I'm explaining this stuff to her. My son, we read books together. He's an amazing young man. He's 15. I'm ever so proud of him because he was lazy a couple of years ago, right? Really mama's boy and lazy. But then he hit that high school and he comes home and now we read Ed Milet. He plays football. I'm big into being active. You have to be active. You just can't come home and be a potato.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes out for football. And again, he's Indian, right? So the other family, they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, but what's the rule? He says, I can't quit until the end of the season. Okay, fine. So I go the first. Now, I played in high school and college. He never played any kind of sports like that. He played other ones, but I was involved in basketball, soccer, football. Let's go, right? I sat the whole week and I watched him. He didn't condition all summer with the team. He wasn't on it. That's hard in Florida in August, right?
Yeah.
And he's not a little person. He is a little shorter than me and he weighs more than me, okay? And he wasn't last in any drill all week. So then I finally asked the question, what are you thinking out there? And he says, I just don't want to be last. I see how hard you work and I know it's worth it. Wow, right?
Oh, that's
if my
awesome.
young son is saying that, I've done my job as a father, haven't I? And then he said what every father hopes for. Can we go to Dick's and buy sports gloves for football? I was like, yeah, dude, we can. Right? I think I'm only scratching the surface of what I'm capable of. Like if I pull the trigger now and, we have a rental portfolio that we could retire with. But I wouldn't know what to do. But what am I showing my son? I didn't reach my potential, I feel then. Because what I know now, I didn't know before. And I have these people watching me, especially, look, I have my daughter, Ella, my son, Aiden. But I mentored a young man who, for 3 years, who now works for us. He's 19. He's my other son, okay? I have him. Like, I'm responsible in a way, and I see these people as the future, okay? So by pulling the trigger and leaving, that's my why every day, plus my team and what we do. Like, I'm learning for a reason. It's not for me. Whatever I'm going to do is for these people and watching what they're going to do great things.
That's that's a good reason, and our children really are a driving force. They we have 7, and our 19-year-old.
I wish I could have. My wife told me to get out. Right.
I will tell you this much: it's exhausting. And when they got older, it's gotten better, but they still keep coming back around and dealing with that. But our 19-year-old was he's probably the most like me out of all of them, and the one that listened. And I've asked him about it a couple times, and he's like, "Look, I saw what happened with my older brothers and sisters. You taught us all the same stuff." And he was talking to his brother the other day, and he works in the kitchen at a restaurant here in town, here in Orange Park. And he was talking to his brother the other day, and his brother's like, "Oh, well, you got it lucky and this and that." And he looked right at his older brother and he said, he goes, 1, I listened to mom and dad, but 2, I just took a crappy job and made it better.
Yeah.
And now he's working full time in an industry you're shouldn't be able to work full time in, but at 19 years old, he's reliable. And I was like, man, I said, that's awesome. And him telling me, he goes, well, I've got you to look up to as an example. That was about an alarm question, though, because kids today get up to like 9 or 10 alarms. I don't understand that. And I sent him a message. I said, how many alarms do you have? He goes, well, 1. I'm your son. You taught me to get up when it's time to get up. And don't worry about it. So that feels good when your kids give you that feedback. And when your team gives you that feedback, that's a totally different level because they're not locked into dealing with you. They're choosing to be there.
That's, again, I'm challenging. And I have, there's literally 2 rules here when it comes to, You need to talk to me. You can't call me bald. You can't call me fat. I don't care about the rest of it. I don't care what you say. I'm not thin-skinned, right? I want the feedback because you're going to get mine correctly, because I feel that if you don't communicate issues, you can't grow. And too many people are afraid to have those hard conversations. Okay? Look, there's going to be problems. You own up to them, right? Very simple. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. How do we fix it? Done. Okay?
Yeah.
If you can't do that and you can't own up to things and you can't have communication, you're going to have issues beyond that.
And not just in your organization, I'm sure, just in general in life. If you can't own up to your mistakes and you can't talk about have the difficult conversations, what is it Jordan Peterson says? Have the damn fight.
Yeah.
Better than living with the results of not having it for years.
You know, my wife is Indian, so they don't like to fight. I'm a Russian, and my dad was a German Jew. Like, we love to fight. Okay, so my wife couldn't understand how my mom, when she was alive, we would fight, and then immediately we're like, "Are you hungry? Come on, let's go." She's like, "What? You guys had a fight? What does that mean? We're not related? We're not mother and son anymore? Our problems are over. We discuss them the way we do, very loud, right? And then we're done. Let's go eat."
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't get that. Now she does, because she'll come yell at me for sure. But it's better than having that eat at you, right?
Yeah, it is. And too many people, they're afraid of conflict today. They don't know. They're even afraid to, if you say their name wrong, to correct you. It's like, please tell me. I don't want to say it wrong for months and then find out. That's terrible.
The bubble wrap world we live in,
Goodness.
We have to not offend. And it's, it's even with politics, the election's over. I don't care about it. If they're still talking about this one or that one, I started to unfollow people or unfriend them, because if all you're going to do is complain, I don't need to see it anymore. I don't care, right?
Yeah, you're not bringing anything to the table. It's not worth it. So do you have any particular decision that's just you feel like you've made that's just pivoted and made everything better for you, or helped to make, not maybe necessarily better, but help make your choices all come together?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. Like, I hired so in the beginning, when you start, you have time but no money. Okay. So now I pivot into what I'm going to do, and I'm looking for a coach, somebody who can give me what I can't do, which is the structure immediately so we can run faster. And I went out and I interviewed. Look, I know a lot of people in the business, right? Really big names. And I talked to a bunch of them. They couldn't help me, but they kept talking about one company, right? It was this Sharper people. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy, Gary Harper, right? And, he used to be an EOS implementer. Then he went out on his own, because I used EOS. But then he put in process and finance involved. Because we can have great meetings, but if we don't have all our processes done, and they came in and they built this structure for us. Because again, that's not my forte, right? I always say, my analogy is, I'm going to design this great swing set. It's going to do all these amazing things. But if I'm the guy to put the nuts and bolts on, we're in a lot of trouble. Okay. And they showed me what a process map was. I didn't know what that was, but I saw the beauty of it, because now we don't just give somebody a job. We give them a map step by step for this process that's theirs. Boom. It just blew my mind on how quickly we could grow around this. And we did. Are there issues? Absolutely, right? It's either going to be people or process. So we're always trying to tweak it and make it better. But that was it. Like, I brought in this company who has got me up to speed and running. And I think people think that, you don't need coaches or mentors, and you're always going to try to grow. And guess what? You need someone to take you there.
And that's true. That's true. I had a friend of mine, I'm talking to him. He was on the podcast a while ago. He's a retired doctor. And he harps on the fact, he said, most people wait too long to go for coaching, to go for direction. They could be so much further ahead. And he's a self-titled boomer coach. That's his specialty. But he said most of his clients, if they'd reached out in their 30s and 40s, they would have been living a life that they couldn't even imagine that they're now starting able to live in their 60s and 70s.
So I hired a fitness coach. I hired an executive fitness program. I weigh 191 now. I used to weigh more than this in 8th grade, okay? I was 215 July 1st. They came in, they did my DNA, my blood work, because you know what? My daughter's 7. I want to see her kids.
Yeah.
Okay? How do I do that? I take better care of me. And look, I used to be in the fitness business. I used to compete in bodybuilding 30 years ago. I don't want to do all that, but I want you to come and they did DNA testing. We do blood work. I'm held accountable for my diet, right? Because I have to put what I eat in my phone. So I'm no longer going to
Yeah.
sit down with my daughter and put that I ate the whole row of double stuffed Oreos, right? Because, because I'm going to write it and it's going to be like, whoa, what did you do? Because I would be embarrassed, okay? I have to take pictures every week. I'm cool with that now, right? Okay,
Yeah.
get on the scale, do my job, because that's what I wanted. But the DNA part of it, to see that, and that's fascinating because I don't methylate vitamins. I need to change this, and now my blood work is better than my wife, who is 12 years younger than me, right? I'm like, ha, I won, right? I went into the doctor, and he's like, dude, I don't know what you did, but just keep doing it. And I told him the company, and he was like, I'm not going to tell you as your doctor, but good choice. I have to do a cleanse next week, and I'm not a big fan. I did it for the first time like last year.
Hmm.
I don't like it, but it's needed like a couple times a year, and I understand it, but it still tastes like crap.
Yeah, my wife makes me do one every once in a while.
They want me doing it quarterly, right?
Ooh.
But here's the thing: the coach is 59 years old. He's not a kid. They first put me with a kid who's telling me, I'm like, dude, I can't listen to you. You don't know what life's about in a certain way. But I was holding him accountable. He didn't show up to our meetings. No bull crap, right?
Yeah.
Now I got a guy older than me, freaking amazing shape, driving me. Okay, I got you, dude. Like, I'm going to catch you now, right? Because now he gave me a bar. He's like, hey, how about doing a show? No, I'm going to be stronger and better than you soon. And I'm catching him, right? I'm actually stronger now, all right? So,
When
yeah,
you're coming across as just a little bit competitive.
I am very competitive, yes. And my daughter's worse than me. Like, my daughter wants to, at 7, race up the stairs every freaking day. I love that, though. Like, I like because I think we took competitiveness away from kids, right? Because
Yeah.
what happened to everybody get a trophy?
Oh, don't let anybody lose.
You didn't. Like, I don't let them win for nothing. I don't just give it to them because everybody else will. My son was in basketball and he was like 6th grade. Everyone got trophies. Like, you lost every game and you were told you're a winner. I'm sorry. That's not, unfortunately, it's not life, right? And then the one time we moved him and he didn't get a trophy, he cried. I'm like, hey, this is reality. He understands that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Because these people grow into adults with that attitude. Now you see the world we have.
well, and you and I know at this point, and what that doesn't teach our children is they need to learn how to fail and overcome it and keep going, because life punishes you first. Whether you learn from that punishment or not is up to you. Because if you don't learn from it, it's going to continue punishing you.
I mean, I was one person who I had to touch the hot stove so many times in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this time it's different. And I finally figured some things out. But what I figured out was that every cliche we've always heard is correct. People don't like to hear it. Like, if you put in the work, you're going to get what you deserve. It's simple. Like you, I see you up early, like me, that's my thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm up early because I know what my day had. I need to do my lifting, my stretching, my praying, all that to handle this. But then when my kid's school says, hey, we have this today, we are present for everything,
Yeah.
right? Because that's why we're entrepreneurs. That was the goal my wife and I set, to be there like our parents couldn't be. Okay, I got this. When we put him in this school, she still worked, and she said, how can we afford this? And I said, how can we afford not to? It's money. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the value. Like, their education is amazing, okay?
And that's it. I mean, it's us being present is just as important as their education, as everything else. And one of the things that I'm the most proud of is our youngest children. Well, two things. Our older children, because we have 2 sets really, but our older children watched us struggle and build and earn our independence. So we weren't there a lot. They had a nanny. We were gone. We were working. We were always working. But our youngest children, especially our youngest son, never knew us to have a job. We were at everything. We were able to be there. We were able to drop him off at school, pick him up, all of those micro moments, because you don't realize how many memories get made just at random times. And we don't get to pick which ones they are, but you better be there for them, because if you're not, then that memory's made with somebody else.
Dude, that's so powerful what you just said, because, I love saying, you don't know the value of a moment till it's a memory. And my wife and I grew up with nothing. We have a joke because I used to get 1 pair of shoes a year. And then she said, hey, because she came from Guyana, she's like, there was a year I didn't have shoes. I'm like, I can't beat that, right?
Yeah.
But we were different now in the sense that we still live in the same house. We could have moved. We didn't, right? Because why? This is where we are. We don't need craziness. We want to teach our kids values that work, especially that, they see how we struggled. The older one did, because we struggled for a little while when I transitioned over. Okay. And the little one's only known good things. Okay. But we do a lot of donations in our community. We tie to our church, but we support two others for all these drives around the time. And we go and we serve on those days, right? Like once a month, usually on a Saturday, where our children come and they hand out whatever we're donating, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because they need to see the value in what we do, but what we give in our community. And one of the proudest moments with my son was Christmas. We didn't travel this year. I hate buying gifts. I take them places, but last Christmas was a nightmare traveling. I didn't want to do it. And so I had to buy him a gift. And I'm in the car with him and I said, hey, before you tell me what you want, I want you to pick a charity, tell me why you chose it, and then find out how we donate our time and our resources. And the last question was, of those two, which is the most important? And the 15-year-old said time. Okay? Boom. Because I didn't know that until I was in my 40s, right?
Yeah.
All right. So he did
That's
it,
awesome.
and I ended up having to give blood, no less. It was like the Red Cross, and I'm like, you want me to give blood? That's like end money? I'm like, oh, okay, not a problem. But, he used to be very afraid of needles, too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't like this. This one's going to bother me, but he did it, important.
When you can't give him his head and give him direction and then second guess everything he does, it kind of defeats the purpose.
I think a lot of people just believe that these children grow up and they're responsible, right? You step back, like you said, you let them fail and figure it out. You're there, but, yeah, he got that, because they learn to do good things, because if they can't do them when they're with you, they're not going to do them when you're not around, right?
It's true. And don't solve every stinking problem for them. Let them figure it out. Let them make mistakes. Let them try again. I mean, it's hard to do as parents, because we want to give our kids more and do better for them than we had when we were younger. But that doesn't teach them anything. Doing everything and giving them everything just creates entitled adults and bratty children.
So I've already given them more than I had, because I grew up in a really bad home environment, right? My dad was a survivor, an alcoholic. There was a lot of abuse, and he had cancer, died. I was a latchkey kid in New York City in second grade.
Oh, okay.
Okay, like, what could go wrong? Everything. When we look back, I look at the wreckage of my neighborhood and the friends, because at that time, late 70s, early 80s, it was worse. And I didn't want to be a father because of my dad. And then, when I realized that I don't have to be that way, I'm going to let him make mistakes. I'm going to watch him. I'm going to help him, but I'm not going to bubble wrap him. And that took a lot, because my wife is the bubble wrap. Like, she will, if he could live in our house forever, she'd be good with that. And I'm like, I don't even want to tell people where we're living later. Like, that was the joke we had. And she's like, well, I will. I said, I'm not going to tell you either, right? I mean, you'll be over there. But because they have to learn. The world is not a good place. We know this, right?
It's true. It's true. I know when our 19-year-old got his own place, was awesome. Super excited for him. And at the same time, I'm like, man, I don't want him to leave. He's my buddy. This sucks.
I know, my son at 15 says, hey, Pop, you're my best friend. And I'm like, oh, not yet, dude. Like, because I got to be your dad still. Like,
Yeah.
You have these moments, though. I could have went to see a football game a few weekends ago, like in December, with my friends. But then I could have hung out with my son and Blake for the day, right? And I chose them.
Yeah.
And I made the right choice for sure. Because I knew I'm not getting over here. That's not my life anymore. But I just heard them talk. And it's like 19 and 15. I'm telling you, I could barely tie my shoes when I was their age, right? And I just had such great interaction with them, because I'm helping this. And
Yeah.
we went to church, we went to the gym. They go to the gym with me, right? My son asked me the other day, hey, can I go to the gym with you? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing wheels. He's like, well, what are wheels? I'm like, I'll show you.
We're going to have some fun.
But he did it, right? He did it.
Well,
I
you
never
got
had
something
that
to look.
before. I look forward to it.
Good. You have got something to look forward to. That's pretty much what I was going to say. Once your son transitions into being an adult and you get to be proud of him, your relationship changes. You never stop being dad,
No.
but he'll call me every day. Just say hi, talk, what's going on. Sometimes it makes fun of me, because she's like, well, sometimes you guys just sit there and grunt at each other, say I love you, and then hang up the phone. Oh, that's enough. We're good. But then
My dad and
sometimes
I never said I love you, right? So different world.
Yeah, different world. And I wanted to make sure that all of our children knew
Hmm.
that they were loved and that they were said that, which is another thing I get made fun of even as the adult children, because we would be going off on them on the telephone, but have to get off there. Yo, 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 yo. Okay, I love you. Bye. That's a running joke in our family. But I didn't want the last thing I said to them to ever be negative. I wanted them to know that I love them. If something were to happen to me, they needed to be left with that.
Absolutely. When they leave the house every morning, my wife takes them to school. I love you. You're amazing. Do amazing things. Okay. Every day.
Every day.
And if I miss it, if I'm not there, that phone is ringing while they're driving in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was never told that ever in my life. Okay. And, my son knows, I told him one day, hey, you're going to make mistakes in life. You are. Trust me. What are you going to do? He's like, man, I'm going to call you. Perfect, right? And he does still. He knows that if he self-reports him, because look, he screwed up in school, not bad, but he tells me first. Don't let
Yeah.
them tell me. Just come and tell me, right? I couldn't do that at home. Like I was a sneaky person because of how I was raised.
Yeah.
If no matter what, I'm going to get beat, so let me just not even worry about it.
And my kids were going to get in a lot less trouble if I heard it from them than if I heard it from somebody else.
Yes.
And that, that actually is one thing that's translated into my businesses too, is everybody that comes to work for me, and most of them similar structure to yours, they're all 1099 subcontractors. It's like, look, if you can't finish, if something goes wrong, I better hear it from you
Mm-hmm.
and not the owner and not the GC. I need to hear it from you first because I can get ahead of it that way.
Bingo.
And you own your stuff. That's fine, but do you let me hear it from somebody else and you knew it ahead of time? I let a crew go the other day for that exact thing.
Yeah.
It was like they could have
It's
fixed
a
it all.
responsibility, right? It's just that knowing that we have a system to where you can look at a project from beginning to end and it should all be there. Someone should be able to come in, you not knowing a thing, start to finish and understand the process of what happened. That's what it's made for. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to put this in there because I didn't want you to get mad. No, I'm mad because the realtor told me during the broker's open my heat didn't work. And you came down to fix it because you didn't check when the guy installed the HVAC that the heat worked, because we live in Florida, right? We don't always
Yeah.
check the heat, but I'm not mad that it happened. I'm mad that she told me, right?
Yeah.
And then when I check my system, it's not there. So why do you think I'm emailing you right now? Okay. You know?
It's like this is gonna be a lot less pleasant conversation than we would have had if you'd let me know. So what advice, and we've been talking for almost an hour. It seems like it's been 10 minutes. What advice would you give? Because we talked about new homeowners, new buyers. So what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are wanting to step out and out there? Because this is Entrepreneur Podcast, the OME Accelerator version. So
Mm-hmm.
what would you say? What would you wish?
You only have certain chances in life and opportunities, okay? If you think you have what it takes to do this, or you want to do it and you're willing to commit, go do it. You're not gonna regret it if you put the work in. It's so worth it. I just texted this to one of my students the other day who's going through some issues. You have this. It's worth it when you follow through because you're gonna take care of yourself, your family, and everything you want if you put the work in. But if you're not going to do that, put the work in, stay with your W-2 because you're going to get it's a really easy to get defeated if you're lazy, isn't it?
That is a
But I used to
very
be
true
lazy.
statement.
Yeah, I was until about 15 years ago. I was talented in certain things, right? And if I would stay in my lane and I did the easy things, but I wouldn't do the hard things, right? Once I went over here and started doing the hard things, I got back. Don't get me wrong. I crashed. I made mistakes. I failed. But I got mad at my failures, and I'm too dumb to quit now, right? Because I know in the end, when you do the hard things, that group of people who win over there's not a lot of us sitting there, right?
No.
That's where you want to be. You don't want to be with 100 people getting the trophy. You want to be with the one or two getting the trophy.
And the thing is, when you start winning and then you get addicted to it, and then you start hanging out with other people that are addicted to it,
Yes.
and you start holding each other accountable even without even realizing it.
Yeah, because you know what? It's so easy to hang around people we're better than. It's always, look, you want to be the big fish. No, you want to be a little fish in that big pond, right? Because your goal is to grow up to be one of those big fishes, okay?
Yeah.
And so many people want to be the big guy in the little group, okay? Dude, that's easy. Keep your eyes up. And one of the best, I guess, advices that I got was a few years ago. I'm in a mastermind. The guy said, "Hey, man, you're going to do well because of your attitude. But I see who you're with on your Facebook and your friend. They're all going to be gone soon. I'm just telling you. Because he was right, because they didn't want to work the weekend. They didn't want to put in the work. And the way he described it was, you're pulling a boat, not in water, but over rocks. And they're in the boat instead of pushing it with you.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to do one of two things. You're just going to give up, or you're going to cut the boat off. Boom. Right? And as I looked, that had to happen because I was carrying people for too long who didn't want to do the work with me. And you know what? 4 of them have come back and said, man, we made a mistake. We understood, but thank you for the opportunity. Right? Cool. You know? And that's the advice I give people. Like, stop carrying people if they're not going to carry themselves.
I can respect that if somebody says that to me, or I don't want to do that. Now, we all get asked as entrepreneurs, man, you're lucky, this and that. How can I do what you did? I've gotten to the point where I just tell them the truth. And most people will look at me and go, well, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Maybe there's another way. You ask how I did it.
But that's hard work, right? It's social media makes everything look easy. Okay? That's the problem. People will say, oh, man, you got it easy. Look at you, you're at the gym. You know what time it is when we're at the gym? It's dark, right? But here's the thing. You're going to fall to your discipline. Okay?
Yes.
And my discipline tells me when it goes hard, right, I go to the gym because I need to take care of me, right? The oxygen mask on the plane, you take yours before you can help others. And for me, it's, right, I start my day I roll over and I thank God for the 24 I may have. I'm going to use them to the best of my abilities. Okay, boom, right? I stretch, I read, I go to the gym. I'm not there a long time, but now I'm ready for whatever this screams garbage starts to bring, right? If I don't do that consistently, this wears on me.
It's as much for mental health as it is for physical health, at least for me.
Yeah, you know.
And I started putting those time stamps on my stories that people watch when I'm at the gym, just because half the time they're like, oh, well, you got time to go to the gym. It's like, well, yeah, because I made it. So I'm not going to get up at 4 a.m. Okay.
You know, I never liked 4 a.m., but I love 4 a.m. now because no one's around, right?
Yeah, it's quiet. My phone doesn't ring. Unless it's some other joker who's sending me messages knowing I'm up at 4 a.m.
I have a few of them, but you know what? A couple of them live in California, so it doesn't count. They're just going to bed late.
Yeah,
right?
that's not fair. I've got some friends out there that do that. But the Florida guys, yeah, there's a few of us that are all up at the same time, and I'll get, hey, you did gym today? What are you doing?
But you look at these people and you know the work ethic they have, you know their time, you know what they're doing. We don't have to say anything. I look at you and I will just nod because I know, right? It's different. And that's all you need. If somebody in our position just nods to me and I know how much work he puts in, he knows me, it's kind of validation at that time, right? Because I look around the gym, it's kind of quiet here, right? It's not 9 a.m. It's not with the soccer mom crowd, right? We got crap to do at that time.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody's in there to work. I know a ton of people in the gym. I have no idea what their name is. We never talk to each other, but I can recognize them in a crowd in an instant. It's like, yeah, those dudes are putting in the work. And gals. I'm not excluding. There's some gals.
No, yeah. Like, I mean, there's a couple at the gym at that time. Like, I'm like, I mean, you know, she's like, this one woman, she's like 65, dude, doing shit, looks amazing, right? I talked to her, right? Because she lives around the corner, it turns out. I'm walking one day and there she is. Now we know each other's name because now we'll talk. Because in the gym, I don't talk.
Yeah.
Headphones, I have my time, you have yours. If I see you outside, I'll get your name.
Yep. And I've got a friend I've made similar like that. We talked at the gym. We worked out together all the time, but we'd only talk at the end of the set because he doesn't look like he wants to be interrupted. I got headphones in. I'm not going to be interrupted. And over 2 years, we finally knew each other's name. And now, I mean, we've become friends out of there, but it wasn't a 2-year-long progression relationship. It was, okay, we were building respect for one another, seeing the consistency. It's like, all right, we can let you into the bubble now.
Because that circle, right? That circle, I believe in my 3 circles, the things I can control, influence, and crap about, right?
Yeah.
If you're in my circle now, it's tight, it's small, it's different. When I was younger, there was a big crowd there. I learned that, no, these are people who I can count on. They're reliable. We align with each other. My values, my goals, my mission. Like, we have similar styles like that because I want to be around people who I want to emulate. Okay. I don't want to be around, you know, listen, if you do drugs and all craziness, you're not in my life. Like that's done, right? And so they're not here. I have friends still living in Miami, living that stuff still. I'm like, whatever, right? We don't talk as much because that's not what I want to be around.
Well, and we only have so much energy to give. And by the time we're done with our business, we give it to our family. It's like I am hyper selective about the people I will allow around myself. And my wife's even more so.
Oh yeah.
She's like, no, we're not doing that today.
Well, who's around your children are the people you really know. Okay.
Yeah.
That circle gets tight. Like, I went to the Hard Rock for an event a few years ago for real estate, and I met up with people from my past. We had breakfast. They were coming home from the clubs, and I was laughing because I'm like, oh man, I used to look like this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, do me a favor. Can you blink? Because you're just like beaming at me. And they're like, hey, we're coming up at Christmas and take you and your family to Disney. I'm like, yeah, like hell you are. Right? You're not, like, it's one thing to go me because I know you. You're not around my children. My children know whoever I bring around, they're okay.
Yeah.
And it's
that smile. No, you're not.
Yeah. Like, no, I'm good. Like people know, like if you're in my home, it's different, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I invite you over for dinner. I care about you. I probably love you as a person, you matter in my life. Right? Because my children know you. They know your name. They say hi. And it's a different world with that, right?
It is. And it's important. And I don't think people guard that enough.
No.
And I know, we start our families, we don't know that. But
yeah, you know these people are, right? Like my children know there's a safety bubble around me because I'm dad, I'm pop, but I'm also vigilant. I grew up, like you grew up in the suburbs. I didn't. I grew up in the city. It was a mess. I still think that way, right? I'm always looking at people for, the reasons, like, who's this guy, that guy, right?
When ours was, you said suburbs. It's odd. I didn't really grow up in the suburbs. I grew up in the oil field, in small oil field towns. So everybody out there is pretty rugged, pretty independent, and there's nobody coming to help. And I'm sure in the city it's the same way. It's like you're responsible for yourself. You better step up and deal with this because there's nobody around.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different environment. I'm glad and sad at times because it taught me things I shouldn't have known at a young age and saw things,
Goodness.
Like I knew how to skip school and get on an elevated train and go see Yankee games, right? Then when I get to the stadium, I see like a lot of my teachers because they're drinking in the stands and, it's like, oh, okay, this was, but that was a bad environment for children. Would I let my kids do that? No, right? No. But I'm not. I appreciate the experience because it made a better version of me one day.
This is true. And I agree. I mean, when you're left alone, you're going to find something to do. And as a generation of latchkey kids, there's a reason the Gen Xers are so tough because we learned the hard way through a lot of stupid stuff.
My daughter saw that thing on Facebook about drinking from a hose, and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, girl." There was a time where you didn't have water bottles, right? Or the internet wasn't always there for you. She's like, no, seriously. I'm like, no. The phone used to be connected to the wall. She's like, get out of here. It's like,
yeah. My adult children still think I'm savage because I'll drink tap water.
My wife does, right? She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, girl, you grew up in the jungle. What the heck, right? You were worried. I always joke because, it's Guyana. Like, it's river monster. I'm like, you were worried snakes were going to eat you. She's like, stop. It wasn't that bad. I've been there. It's close, right? But, like, how do we become so protective all of a sudden if you grew up that way? Like, you flipped it 100, like, it's the other way now. You should be, like, a little savage, too. She's like, absolutely not, right?
Well, in her defense, we're the same way, too. One of our granddaughters lives with us. I won't let her go down the end of the street, and we live in a cul-de-sac without being outside to watch her.
But she was like that with our son at 15, right? He's 200 pounds. I'm like, hey, like, he was going for his 8th grade trip to Universal with the school. Okay. He is 5'9", 200 pounds. He does jujitsu really well at that age. Okay. He's been in it for years. And grandma and grandpa are like, are you going to let him go? I'm like, they're not going to grab that one. One, he eats too much. Okay. He's not the little one. Two, he can beat most people's ass. I stopped playing with him because he almost flipped me. I'm like, hey, we're done because he didn't realize he almost got me. My wife is like, I saw you. You almost lost. I'm like, if we're not playing that anymore. But, I had her in jujitsu for a little while. Now she went back to gymnastics, but she's going to go back over, right? She didn't like choking people. They're doing chokehold. I'm like, hey, I'll give you ice cream if you choke her. Man, she choked that girl really good. She took the ice cream. But I want to teach that you need to be able to defend yourself and not just scream. Okay.
True.
So
That's important. And we are out of time, my friend. Tom, tell
it was
everybody,
great.
if you want to leave them with a parting thought, what would you say? And tell everybody how to follow up with you, because you got some good advice. And I know you post stuff on Facebook fairly regularly. So,
Hey, yeah, Tom Lehmann on Facebook and Instagram. You can just follow us all from there. But let me tell you, if you're going to go for it, go for it. Don't do it half-butt. Don't have this plan B or something to fall back on, right? Because you've already quit. You're done. If you're thinking about, well, if this goes wrong, do it. And you won't be sad about doing it when you finish it.
that's a great parting thought. Burn the boats. Don't give yourself another option.
Yeah.
Guys, as always, if you made it down here, make sure you like and subscribe. I will put all of Tom's links in the description here so you can go follow him. Go over there and show him some love for spending time with us today. And make sure that you follow me on social media. We've got daily posts, and it's all different. So, love y'all.
See you. Take care.